But let's talk about what's going on in PlayStation gaming news this week. Keeping everyone up to date on what's going on the Team Sony. We have Japan is hit with another PS5 price increase. So this is actually number 3 when it comes to price increases in Japan. I guess when I've never heard of this model before where your product actually goes up over time. I think it's incredibly bold. And if they're still selling gangbusters, I mean, it's crazy to see that amount of success there, that they're able to boldly increase the prices. But what do you think the driving forces is for this?
Probably greed, if we're being honest. It's an unfortunate thing we've seen with PlayStation more recently. An unfortunate thing we've seen with the gaming industry in, say, the past 5-10 years is that money has spoken louder than everything else. Now, don't get me wrong, we're in a very weird space where the art needs money to be made, and you need to then sell that art for money to make more art. So you're in a bit of a weird situation where it's part commercial, part artistic. But the commercial side of things has been taking over again and again and again. And Sony are a mega corporation. Let's not forget about that. Let's not say that they're just small fry, they're the underdog and all that sort of stuff. They're still talking about $100 billion in value at the moment. So it's greed. Most of these companies want to see booming profits, record profits year on year, and PlayStation have been seeing that. Sony have been seeing that. In fact, PlayStation have been propping up Sony for maybe 2 decades because of their revenue share coming in and the profits that they've been making. But PlayStation is now more expensive to run because they're making games that are costing $200-300 million a time, and they're selling them for $70, and not as many people are buying them because those games are more expensive. So to get those record profits, they've got to look where people are willing to spend, and people are still trying to get hold of the PlayStation 5. It's still selling incredibly well worldwide, really, really well in Japan, and they feel that they can make more profit that way. And they're going to throw excuses out there like, the supply chain is problematic. We've got all of these price rises in fuel and gas and superconductors because of the war in Ukraine and all this sort of stuff. The same crap that we've been fed by every corporation on the planet, who then go on to record like $750 billion in profits. It's just greed. And it saddens me that Japan are now spending the equivalent of £620 per PlayStation 5 console. To put that in perspective, here in the UK currently, the PlayStation 5 costs you £479, which is still £29 more than it cost when it launched. We got a £50 uprise in 2022, and then it's dropped a little bit since that point to the $479 mark, and that's where it's sort of sat since. But Japan are now at the equivalent of £620 for a PlayStation 5, and at that price, you're then starting to question whether it is actually worth it, because you can get a lot of these PC handhelds that can do the same and more as a PlayStation with a wider library for less money at that point. So yeah, for me, I think it's greed causing it more than anything else, and it absolutely saddens me that Japan, the home of PlayStation, has been royally screwed over by PlayStation themselves. It properly saddens me. And the unfortunate thing was, when I saw the news, my immediate response was, I'm not surprised, which kind of gives us a view of the gaming world that we're in right now.
Well, another reason why I think could be hit for the increase is because all the consoles are leaving and going to their next door neighbors due to a most recent console moving game that was released. We see here that Black Myth Wukong prompts PS5 sales explosion. That's right, explosion. Now, you can't necessarily buy PlayStation 5s in China when I was doing the research for this. And what they have to do is they have to go through this workaround And it's mentioned in the article a retailer called Taobao, or where was it again? Taobao's. So on that retailer, they actually saw PS5s double in the weeks leading to Black Myth Wukong in terms of sales. So we believe that, or the article is stating that people from China were just scooping up PlayStation 5s at an incredible rate to be able to play Black Myth Wukong on perhaps something more affordable than a high-end PC for their gaming experience. And haptics, let's go. But crazy to see.
Surely such a situation would lower the price, though. If you are selling more of this item, right, they're flying off the shelves quicker than ever before, other than when they first released with massive supply chain issues. Surely that means the price doesn't need to rise because more money's coming in, more and more and more and more money. And the reason they're going on to Taobao is because there aren't that many PlayStations in China, because it's not a market that's had games that have appealed to them previously. They've got rules on gaming in China where you can get like an hour a day if you're under the age of 18. I think it might be down to like an hour every Wednesday and Saturday. If you're under the age of 18, that's all you're allowed to play. So they spend that time playing mobile titles where they can actually get some progression because of government rules and regulations. So it's going to be adults going for the PlayStation 5s for Black Myth. And like I say, it's a much more affordable gateway into things than building a $4,000 PC that can run it at, actual stable frame rates and visible pixels. But surely, if you're selling more consoles than you have previously, and people are going to neighboring economies to get them because there aren't enough in their own economy, that would lower the price. And it just brings us back to that whole surely it's just greed situation.
Or maybe they're running out of consoles and they need people to stop buying them because they can't keep making them this fast. Who knows
That's
which
a
way.
Problem.
But
Not
either
a consumer
way,
problem.
they're making money, and that money is going to go into the pockets of obviously executives. But what it's also going to do is it's going to bring more great titles. It's going to allow them to build better ecosystems for the gamers. So I'm happy to see it. I think and I think that it's to, Japan and China, I could see some sort of rivalry going between them. It's like, hey, you want this PlayStation to play your game? Guess what? It costs $50 more. I don't know. I'm sure Australia and New Zealand have the same head-to-head. I know Canada and the US have the same head-to-head. I'd definitely raise the price if Americans wanted it. That's just my thinking. Come on, isn't UK and like Scotland? What do you guys think about? Or Ireland?
Scotland's part of the UK.
Yeah, I'm not
so
great at
Northern
geography.
Ireland. It's not really a
I should have said nothing.
My major concern here is there's been 3 price rises in Japan in 3 years. So the first year went by and it cost the same. And then year 2, year 3, and year 4 of the PlayStation 5 have seen price rises in Japan. The second year of price rises saw a price rise for everyone else as well. If we're seeing yet another price rise in Japan, I would expect to see that worldwide in short time. This isn't something that we can let slide easily. And it's all right for people like yourself and myself who've already got a PlayStation 5 at home, who've got it for like launch prices. But there's people wanting to get into the ecosystem, wanting to get back into the ecosystem. There's games coming to it that run better on the PlayStation 5, or it's just an easier experience and it still has a similar library to what you want. And if that's costing $100 more, £100 more than at launch, it's going to make people hesitate. And do they go elsewhere? Do they go and buy that Xbox instead? Or do they just wait for Nintendo to do what's next? Or, as I said earlier, do they turn around and think, well, I can get these games eventually on PC anyway? Do I just get a PC handheld for less money than the console? It's something we need to be aware of and careful of saying is a good thing. I don't think price rises on consoles within their lifespan is a good thing at all. It should be cheaper now than it was at launch so that we can get more people into the ecosystem, so that more games can be sold. but they're not bringing enough games to make that a viable business model. So they keep jacking the prices of the console, and eventually that's going to lead to a breaking point for the customer. And I think we're closing on that pretty darn quick.